I have 7 o'clock straight up. So Neil, are you leading us off?
Yeah.
All righty, take it away.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's polio panel discussion. I'm past District Governor Neil McBeth. My role is I'm the End Polio Now Zone Coordinator for Zone 28 Central. Tonight's event is being co-hosted by District 6360 and 6400. I want to introduce past District Governor Ed Foster, who is the polio chair from District 6360 and whose brainchild of having a polio program started this ball rolling. Ed is the polio chair in District 6360. Ed, do you have a few words?
Yes, I do. First of all, I want to thank all the panel for participating. This started out as a quick ask of Neil McBeth to do a program by Zoom for my club. And then he agreed to do that. So I said, well, why can't we open it up to the district? So we did that. And then Neil says, I think I can do better than that. And so this is what we're up with today. I have been involved since 1987 as polio chair for my district and my club. And I am a polio survivor. Missed the first 9 weeks of my senior year in high school. But part of my passion is for a person who spent the last 36 years of his life in an iron lung. And I became very close friends with him. My church and Rotary put together a team of men that would move him in and out of the iron lung for about 22 of his last years. So I have a reason for being here tonight. Thanks, Neil. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. At this time, I want to thank past District Governor Liz Smith from District 6400, who moderated the pre-panel discussion leading up to 7 o'clock and who also is our technical advisor for this webinar. She's done an amazing job preparing us for tonight's program. Also, Bruce and Sue Golson, who managed the registration for us. Tonight's panel is being moderated by Dr. Nick Krayacich from the LaSalle Centennial Rotary Club. A medical doctor, Nick is better known in Rotary circles for his role of being a trainer of the training leaders at the International Assembly, as well as an International Assembly speaker. He has an excellent knowledge of both Rotary, but also our polio initiative. Our moderator, Nick Krayacich.
Thank you very much, Neil. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And we are very excited to have everyone here this evening. As Neil said, my name is Nick Krayacich, and I'm a proud member and past president of the Rotary Club of LaSalle Centennial in LaSalle, Ontario, Canada. Allow me to introduce the format for this evening. We have 4 very distinguished speakers on our panel this evening: Aruna Koushik, Mike McGovern, John Germ, and Jennifer Jones. I will introduce each one of them very shortly. The panelist discussion will take approximately 40 minutes, and afterwards, we will have approximately 20 minutes for questions and answers. During the discussion, I will be perusing the question and answer section, so please type in your questions here, not in the chat room, as this will not be monitored. If you would like your question directed to a particular panelist, please indicate so in the question and answer section. And if not, I will direct it as a general question for any of the panelists to answer. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let us begin. Our first speaker tonight is Aruna Koushik. And Aruna is from my own district, 6400. She is going to be our district governor in the year 2021, 2022 to 2022. She is a recipient of the International Service Award for a polio-free world. She has also led or been part of NIDs to Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, and Nigeria, along with her husband and Rotarian Shiva Koushik, who is also a recipient of the International Service Award for a polio-free world. They are indeed a true dynamic duo and warriors in the fight against polio. Ladies and gentlemen, Aruna Koushik.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Nick, for such a wonderful introduction. And thank you to Neil McBeth and Ed Foster for offering me this opportunity to share my thoughts along with these distinguished panelists. I would like to start off with this quote. There is an electricity supply line, but no electricity. And there is no electricity transformer in the area. We have no mosquito kits and no spray against mosquitoes is arranged for us. Our children die of polio, malaria, or the heat. These words of a village elder resonate in my heart even today when I think of what the name PolioPlus actually means. When we plan our trips, we explore with the polio chairs, the staff at the ground, and the polio workers, the other needs that come into play when we do these polio trips. Our team training includes cultural sensitivity and norms and customs, safety requirements, documents that need to be ensured, and most importantly, flexibility, which is the key when you visit different countries. When we planned a trip to Afghanistan, we were very aware of the cultural norms and the norms that exist between males and females. Our AG Dost Mohammed was excellent in providing guidance. We woke each morning to the sound of the muezzin's call of prayer and the sound of bullets in the distance. But we were safe. Those that made arrangements for a half a day NID at the local hospital. We went to a crowd of babies and parents sitting, waiting for us to vaccinate for the half-day NID. The man on the right that you see in the picture looked at me and offered his baby to me. I dropped the 2 precious drops in his mouth. And as I looked up, I saw a tear in his eyes. He put his arms around me. It was pure humanity. Aziz Memon, the Rotary Foundation trustee, and his polio workers are relentless in the eradication of polio. Pakistan has just completed 7 days of polio NIDs to take over from the COVID pandemic that they have suffered through. Generally, we have 3 days of NIDs and 1 extra day so we can catch the children who we have missed. Here, next, creating polio pathways was our slogan. We realized, working with the ground staff, that when we offered mosquito nets, the parents would bring their children to the camps. We were able to get thousands of children vaccinated. We have vaccinated children in buses, trains, truck stops, schools, slums, and in any area you can think about. The story of Pakistan in the training center is very heartwarming. On the right, you see a picture, and I had just finished talking to the polio workers and thanked them for their work and their dedication and their courage. A polio worker came up to me, took my hand and put it to her forehead in thank you. I asked her why, and she said, and you see the man circled in the picture on the right. He had been refusing to have his grandkids vaccinated. After he had finished, he invited us to vaccinate his grandkids. And the picture that you see on the left are the kids that we vaccinated in Pakistan. Dr. Tunji Fanshaw is just been named one of 100 Time magazine's most influential people. He is a wonderful man. I was introduced to him by Bob Scott at the Toronto Convention. We negotiated and talked, and we worked on all the documents together. And we had a few flexible turns with the NID dates, but we accomplished polio immunizations in Abuja and Kano. Here in Nigeria, the PolioPlus came front and center. We distributed millet, powdered milk, cookies to the displaced persons camps of the Boko Haram terrorists and in the clinics. In Kano, when we walked into the clinic, we saw these children and these babies. The lady on the right, wearing the purple hijab, started speaking in Hindi, and I was surprised. As I vaccinated her baby, she said that her husband refused to vaccinate her child. She wanted to protect her child. So she came with her child, spoke to the head chief, who agreed to talk to her husband. And she laughed and said, when her husband gives permission, she will continue and come back and get her baby's toe painted purple. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the courage of a mother. We all understand that. We are Rotarians. In these trips, we build a bond that is priceless, that lasts a lifetime. Giving is in our DNA. It is in our mission statement. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, today is more important than ever that we continue this fight and thank the world that we can save our children from polio. We are not just this close. In my mind, we are just a snap away. Thank you for listening and allowing me to share my experiences. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Aruna, for your passion and your purpose in eradicating polio, and for your passion for the children of this world, that they may walk a purposeful life. Thank you for that.
Very well.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Mike McGovern. At present, he is the international chair of the PolioPlus committee. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that this is one heck of a big deal. Mike sits in meetings at tables with prime ministers, presidents, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, leaders at the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the CDC. As well, he was a trustee of the Rotary Foundation in the year 2012 to 2016, and he was a Rotary International Vice President in the year 2007 and 2008. Mike is truly one of our most amazing people in the world of polio eradication. Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nick, and sorry for the little delay getting my slides up. The organizing group tonight has asked me to present an overview of where we are now, where we've come from, and where we're going. They had some specific questions, and that's what I plan to address in the 8 minutes or so that I have this evening. If you look at this slide, together, it's all about working together. It's all about impact, and it's all about action. And we've gotten as far as we have because Rotarians are truly people of action, and because we've worked together with other parties to do it. And we often focus, and we see on Facebook and otherwise the focus on the number of cases every week. But sometimes, these other statistics which are on this slide, I think people aren't as well aware of. We have 19 million people now walking on this earth. 19 million people, because we have impact. Together we took action. We're preventing 650,000 cases a year. We've immunized 3 billion children. And just look at these statistics for the last calendar year, 2019. More than 430 million children were immunized, and we used 1.2 billion doses of oral polio vaccine. And look at the period of time we've gone without cases outside Pakistan and Afghanistan. Yeah, we're a little disappointed we've had more cases, but look at this progress. As Rotarians, we ought to be so proud of the impact that we have had. One of the questions I had was, Mike, would you explain circulating vaccine-derived polio cases? And if you look at the far right of this chart, it's we've had about 121 cases of wild polio virus in Afghanistan and Pakistan so far this year. Well, we've had 302 of this vaccine-derived polio viruses. So what is this? People think that we're giving the polio drop to someone and they immediately are getting the virus vaccine-derived. That's not what it is. The folks who are getting it are the folks that aren't getting vaccines at all. So their immunity systems have not built up. And what happens is we give the oral polio virus to people, they secrete it onto the ground, and then it mutates. And the weakened virus that's contained in the oral polio vaccine then emerges in these underutilized, under-immunized populations. So it's an expensive undertaking for us because we're having to go in and do outbreak control in a lot of these countries where the 302 cases are. It is a setback. It was unexpected. But the people, well, what are you doing to deal with it? What's the partnership doing? It can be stopped with this new oral polio vaccine that's been developed over the last 10 years, paid for by the Gates Foundation, by the way. We expect an early use license very, very soon. We're also continuing to give the injectable polio vaccine, which does not contain a live virus. It's inactivated. That's being funded by Gavi. So you can see the importance here. We are addressing this. It is going to be addressed, but in the meantime, sadly, there's people getting cases, and as you can see, it's affecting kids the same way as the regular wild polio virus, sadly. We also are dealing with COVID, and that was another question that was posed. This is Dr. Moetti. Dr. Moetti, as you can see, is the regional director of the World Health Organization African region. And the district governor, Aruna, just mentioned, the big success, the big celebration of that Africa was declared polio free. Look at her comment here. It's the extensive polio response network that was created because of Rotary's initiative that is lending the crucial support to countries that contain COVID-19. So, what are the GPEI is the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. And actually, these 2 slides now I got from the World Health Organization yesterday. And, and I had asked them in preparation for tonight, so tell me, give me the facts of, what is our contribution to COVID-19? And, they define it as substantial and essential. And this is, some that we've already done. It says through December, some is agreed to. There's 4,000 WHO polio staff in countries that are responding, polio staff. And it's the value of this is $61 million. There's other monies that come into the partnership. Our share of that is about $10 million. We expect that it might be reimbursed. We've been told that it will be. We'll see. But they're using the polio network experience for introducing vaccine. And when we hear about the COVID vaccine in our countries, We're hearing about all the issues of the problems is going to be with vaccine introduction. In the polio field, we have that experience. We have the experience with logistics. We know how to reach the remote communities. So we're going to provide immeasurable support going ahead with our experience and with our knowledge. It also highlights the importance of all of the sustaining capacities that we have, because we're really concerned with longer term preparedness and resilient health systems. Our goal as Rotarians is the certification of the end of the wild polio virus. And in the meantime, we are taking care as well of these circulating viruses. And so we really need the longer term preparedness and resilient health systems, because we're still going to have some of those cases after we actually certify the world free of the wild polio virus. Other contributions for COVID, it's the surveillance system, it's the transportation, the cold chain, it's the laboratories. In Pakistan, President Holger Kanak of Rotary this year and our trustee chair, Ravi Ravindran, visited this polio emergency operations center in February. They saw this, but now this polio center, in addition to still helping with polio, is providing the data and analysis for COVID-19, immense contribution. It's an opportunity for us to further polio transition, which means, eventually, with polio, we want this network supported by countries to make sure we keep polio out, and also that we have integration. You can see all these things we're doing in Yemen as well. So, going forward, we still have, we focus on Pakistan and Afghanistan, but technically these countries are in the area that has not been certified free of the wild polio virus. These are all important countries. You look at them. Fortunately, none of them except for the two countries have had the two cases, but there's a population of 583 million. You see a few of them are actually in Northern Africa. So, so we talk about certifying the Afro region, but technically, for those of you that follow these things, there are still a few countries in Africa. So what do we need to do to finish the job? Rotary's done a wonderful job advocating the governments of the world, particularly in the endemic countries, the African countries. It was in large part Rotary, but working with our partners to convince the countries to take on these programs. John Germ's going to talk about the goal and the match. I'll defer to him on that. We need, as I mentioned, to stop the vaccine derived cases, and everyone needs to look at these websites to find out more about polio. The one I skipped over, we need to convince parents and leaders. In my view, that's our number one challenge. That is how we're going to eradicate polio. We need to work with groups, anti-government elements in some countries, but most of all, and why I included this picture, this is a woman in Abuja, and we were doing the immunization activity there, and she arrived late, and she came running in all apologetic, can I still get my kid the polio vaccine? You look at that smile on her face, and I ruined the picture, but sometimes you wonder if you get thanks for what you do. All you need to do is look at that woman's face. And if we get every mother, every father in Afghanistan and Pakistan to think the same way this woman does of the importance of immunizations, we're going to get there very soon. So, we need to remain confident we're going to eradicate polio. We've had tremendous success. We have a few challenges right now, just like everyone else does in the world. But Rotarians are passionate, they're resilient, and they have the persistence and patience to get this done. So thrilled, Nick, to participate with you today. And I truly want to thank all the Rotarians and other friends of Rotary on tonight's call for their support. So thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Mike. That was absolutely such fantastic data and passion. And we want to thank you again for all your efforts and your career really in the eradication of polio. Reminds me of the importance of vaccinating, our children, not only our children, but to get our vaccinations of adults as well. As a general practitioner in Canada, I'm still seeing more and more vaccine hesitancy. And I think it's happening in North America and in the globe. And if I may offer some personal thoughts on that, and you may encounter people globally or in your community who have questions about the safety of vaccines, whether it's polio or any of other vaccines that we have. In my experience, when you're dealing with people who have vaccine hesitancy, I think the best way to deal with them is with kindness as opposed to hostility. really to have an open conversation. And I think to ask them questions. Why is it they have their views that they have? And then base your arguments on science and data, which there is plenty of it out there. And a lot of times these folks are given misinformation and false data from various social media sites. And so I think it behooves us to be kind to them and have an open dialogue and present data and science to present to them. And I think Mike has got his hand up and would like to comment on that.
Yeah, just quickly, Nick, you're absolutely right. And our challenge truly is that they not see this as our program, that they see it as their program. And if we can have them totally embrace it as their program, we're there.
Really good advice. Thank you very much. And as Mike's showed on one of his slides, we are 99.9% of the way there, but we have to finish the job, and that is going to take some money from us. You saw that Rotary is committed to $50 million a year over the next 3 years, and the Gates Foundation will match that. So I just want to remind everyone that if you're so inspired to eradicate this disease with some donations, please visit rotary.org/give. Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is John Germ. And John Germ is one of my good friends in the Rotary world. He is currently the chair of the End Polio Now Countdown to History campaign. He is the trustee of the Rotary Foundation chair-elect in the year 2020, 2021, and he was Rotary International president in the year 2016, 2017. It gives me great pleasure to give the floor over to John Germ.
Thank you very much, Nick. All of a sudden, I've got a dry mouth here. You know, Eleanor Roosevelt once said that the future belongs to those that believe in the beauty of their dreams. And I ask you to think back to 1978, when Sir Clem Renoff, who just recently died, had the idea that we could have a polio-free world. Took effort, took being turned down by the World Health Organization, but then it took Rotary to 1985 to come up with an idea to raise $120 million, raised $247 million. Then in 2007, in November, the Gates Foundation came on board and became a partner with Rotary, WHO, CDC, and UNICEF by issuing Rotary a wire transfer for $100 million. We didn't have a campaign. We didn't have an organization to go raise this $100 million, but there was two stipulations. And I want you to pay attention, please, to the fact that this was in November 2007. The first stipulation was that we needed to raise $100 million by 2010. But the most important stipulation was that we spend that money by December the 31st of 2008. Now, who else could have that much confidence in Rotary? Who else could have that much confidence to say, here's $100 million, you spend it. They didn't say you have to pay it back if you don't raise it. We were about halfway through the campaign. I mean, who's going to turn them down? So we started a campaign. We were about halfway through that campaign when the Gates Foundation said, we'll give you another $100 million if you'll agree to raise another 100, and we'll go to 2012. Well, thanks to many of you that are on this program tonight, thanks to those that went before us, and thanks to those that believed in the beauty of the dream, we raised 228.7. Well, that relationship with the Gates Foundation has continued on. We now have an agreement with the Gates Foundation that if we do $50 million, they will do $100 million. Now, another interesting thing about the agreement with the Gates Foundation is that $50 million becomes $150 million, but it's Rotary's money to spend. So Rotary actually allocates $150 million in a year. A lot of people have said, well, how do you spend this $150 million? So this chart that you're looking at shows that we spent $28.5 million on vaccine. We spent $21 million on detection. We spent $36 million on raising awareness and making people aware of the fact that we still have to have the polio campaign, and we have to have people aware in the water, the sanitation programs and stuff that we have. And we have to get the vaccine to the children. There are still many areas, parts of the world where we cannot get vaccine to the children. But let's look at raising awareness on the next slide. You can see that we have a lot of people there behind the End Polio Now, because it does take teamwork. And many of you have heard me say that together, everyone achieves more. The reason we're here where we are today with the eradication of polio is because we work as a team. You see a billboard sign there, World Polio Day, and Jennifer will talk about World Polio Day in just a few minutes. We talk about detecting disease. And if you look at the next slide, you'll see people that Mike referred to that are in our laboratories, that are there working, and that are helping us to detect the disease that is the virus that is coming in from the sewage into our laboratories. The vaccine. We have to spend money for vaccine. We spend $850 million a year through the GPEI for eradicating of polio. And it is expensive. We have to do surveillance in 72 countries. And so that's what the laboratories are doing. And as Mike's mentioned, those laboratories have been used for Ebola. They've been used for the COVID. Here you have a Rotary volunteer putting those 2 drops, just as was shown earlier by Aruna, as to how important it is that those 2 drops get in that child's mouth. Well, we have to deliver that vaccine, and that's their $58.5 million. We help fund donkeys, bicycles, tricycles, boats. We fund a lot of things of how we can deliver this vaccine to these children. On the right there, you see 3 healthcare workers. We fund an awful lot of healthcare workers. As a matter of fact, we fund over 100 million vaccinators to go out there to help deliver this vaccine. So it is a team. It is a team that gets together. Well, we could all be all pessimistic now because we can't meet in person. We've got problems with fundraising drives because we're now transforming. So we're optimists, though. We're optimistic that we are going to finish this job that Rotary actually started. 2018-19, we raised $50.8 million. 2019 and 20, we raised $50.795. Now, quite honestly, if I knew that we were that close, I'd have told Neil, give me $5,000 so we could have been back at 50.8 million. The interesting statistic and where we really need your help. Not only do we need the individual contributions, but 70% of the districts contributed some DDF to the campaign. That leaves 457 that didn't contribute anything to the polio campaign. 53.7% of the clubs contributed to polio. What happens to the 46.3%? That's where advocacy comes in. That's where we have to work hard to have especially the younger Rotarians that are coming in that do not know about polio, did not know when you couldn't go to the swimming pools in the summertime, did not know when your parents wouldn't let you play with the next door neighbor because they were afraid they would have polio. 240 districts, though, did give 20% of their district designated fund to the polio campaign. So we congratulate them and we ask them to talk to their fellow governors about how important it is that we reach out to every Rotarian because only 9% of the Rotarians out of our great big membership of almost 1.2 million people contributed to Rotary polio campaign. Now, some went through their club, so we don't have all that accurate information, but it is not much more than 10, 12% of doing that. Come up with some ingenious ideas. Think about what we need to do. The fallacy of part of our system is that we have allowed carryover DDL. And right now we have 175 districts that carried forward over $100,000 for a total of $31.5 million. 49 million in total was carried over. We need to reach out to those districts, those district governors, those district Rotary Foundation chairs to say, what is more pressing than the eradication of polio? And if you think that polio cannot spread, think about what has happened with COVID. It started in one area. It's all over the world now. We hear about it every day. It can happen with polio just as well. But while I've talked about money, and that's what I was asked to talk about, it's not just the money. It's not just the money. It's what the money can do. And those slides showed you what money can do. The decrease in the number of cases in the countries shows you what money can do. Nigeria is a success. Africa is a success because of what the money did. So thank you very much. And let me close with one comment that I think is very important. Rotary is the organization, not anybody else. Rotary is the organization that first had the vision of a polio-free world. Our polio eradication partners look to us to sustain our commitment. As Bill Gates told me when I asked him, why did you give money, $100 million, $200 million, and now this agreement with the Rotary for polio? He said, because Rotary has the passion. Rotary has the commitment. Rotary has the stewardship to be sure that we spend the money properly, and Rotary has boots on the ground. So we must remain steadfast in our goal to continue to move forward. I want to thank you for your support. Neil's been a great champion. We have other champions there in the district and throughout the world that are looking at this video tonight, this Zoom tonight. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you're doing in this event tonight. Tremendous successful. But more importantly, thank you for what you're going to do in order to help eradicate polio from the face of the earth. Thank you. I think we lost Nick.
No, I'm right here, John. Thank you. My index finger was a little slow on the draw, but thank you very much for those very poignant and apropos comments. And you're right, Rotary is the organization that is trusted, and we will get the job done. And I want to just relay a quick story about ingenious and out-of-the-box thinking for polio fundraising. A couple of years ago, Jack Nicklaus was the keynote speaker at the Atlanta International Convention. I had the privilege and honor of meeting him. And for those of you who don't know, I'm a golf nut, and Jack Nicklaus is my hero. I had the opportunity to ask Jack Nicklaus if he would do a one-day fundraising for polio. And my thought at the time was to raise $1 million to have 4 golfers who wanted to become AKS members raise $1 million. And this was out of the box thinking. And Jack Nicklaus said, for $1 million, I will absolutely do it. Short story, we ended up with 8 golfers. We raised $5.25 million with the Gates match in one day, ladies and gentlemen, and that all went to polio eradication. So I'm challenging you to think out of the box for experiential fundraising. We all know or have contacts who know celebrities, sports people, famous chefs, actors, etc. And what a great opportunity to bring them into the Rotary fold and to educate them about polio and to raise needed dollars for that. So just a thought, I'm going to leave that with you. Ladies and gentlemen, our last speaker tonight is Jennifer Jones. She is currently a trustee of the Rotary Foundation. She will be our Rotary International President in the year 2022-2023. She was the Rotary International Vice President in 2016 and 2017 when John Germ was the president. She is presently the co-chair of the End Polio Now campaign to History campaign, End Polio Now Countdown to History campaign. And lastly, she is the woman that is the love of my life. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Jennifer Jones.
Well, that's quite the introduction. I don't get that one every day. Anyway, I just want to first and foremost thank all of the people who have been presenting on this call. Your spirit, your passion, your drive to get us across the finish line is nothing short of extraordinary. And that golf tournament with Jack Nicklaus that Nick just referenced, that wouldn't have happened without the artistry of John Germ and how he was able to put that together. Now, I have to say, and I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anyone on the call, because I'm going to switch gears here a little bit away from the emotive into the practical. And the surprise that, like I say, will probably not shock anybody. In high school, I was a cheerleader. Shocked? I think not. And so what I want you to do is I want you to get out a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper. And if it's far away from your computers, don't stray, just listen. But I want you to write down 4 words: host, write, W-R-I-T-E, share, and view. These are things that we need to be thinking about right now as we embark on World Polio Day in just a few weeks. Now, in terms of hosting, last year we hosted over 5,900 events as an organization across the globe to promote World Polio Day. Not only did it raise critical funds, but it also raised absolutely critical awareness for our efforts. We had notables from all of our polio ambassadors who weighed in and added their voice to all of our social media, which turned into literally hundreds of millions of people who understood what we did because of that extended presence that happens through all of their different networks that they bring to the table. So host, that's the first word. What I want to do is challenge each and every one of you to think about what you or your club can do in the lead up to World Polio Day to support our efforts. It's not too far away. You've got a couple of weeks. You know better than I do. If you want something to happen fast, what do? Ask a Rotaractor. They don't form a committee, they just get it done. So I think my challenge to you is, what can you do for World Polio Day with your club members? Dedicate a meeting, have some sort, I know we're limited by what we can do in terms of things because of COVID, but we can do things that are creative and outside of the box, just like Nick talked about. His club has a great polio fundraiser that doesn't even involve a single stitch of time from any member of his club. They do pizza for polio. They engage, because we're in different clubs, they engage local pizzerias. They provide them with stickers that explain what polio is. They ask them on their slowest day of the week to be able to provide them with XYZ percentage of their proceeds. And you know what? It ends up turning into like $2,000 to $4,000 just because people order pizza on that day. It's a slow day. They drive business to them, and the owners say, you know what? Thank you. We would love to give you some of the proceeds back. And so it's things like that that we can think about that are just a little bit different. So that was the first one, host. Write, that was the second word. What I want to challenge you to do is I want to challenge you to write to your local government officials. I want you to thank them for the commitment that they have made to providing funds for our efforts. I know that we have people from all over the world who are on this call, but most specifically, we have North Americans on this right now from our home zones. In Canada, We have been working hard with our government and our international development minister, Karina Gould. I've met with her along with others, with Wilf Wilkinson, who is on the call. Hey, Wilf, shout out to you, buddy. And we've met with her. And just a few months ago, the Canadian government came through with $190 million for polio eradication, because they understand what it means. They know that we're in it to win it, and they are helping us get across the finish line. The United States government has come forward in just even more magnificent amounts. But what we need to do, because it's one of the most incredible bipartisan initiatives of our time, it crosses party lines. We need to say to them, thank you, because it's the children who are going to win, the globe that is going to win. Polio is not. And that's the message that we need to make sure that we get out to them. So regardless of your political affiliation, and I know we're a non-political organization, write to your local politicians and say thank you. Ask them to help you write an op-ed piece for your local newspaper. And that's part of the next word, share. There are so many tools that we can go to on endpolio.org, a whole polio world, End Polio Now toolkit that you can access that will give you news releases, templates, everything that you could possibly want to make a people of action ad that you can put onto your social media. And I want to encourage you to use things like #EndPolio, #World Polio Day, or if you're tweeting @EndPolioNow. These are different monikers that we can use in the social media world that when we all use them, it amplifies our voice. And the final word is view. On October 24th, we want you to watch our World Polio Day update live. But I have a secret weapon for you right now. If you register, RSVP your event before October 15th, you will get a downloadable file in advance of that you can show your club at any time. It's kind of a secret VIP thing. And if you want that, all you need to do is go to endpolio.org, register your event, no matter how big or small. Have an event for 2 people in your house. That's an event. You know what? Tell your friends and maybe they'll make a donation. So do that, go on and get that early access to that event. And the last thing that I want to leave you with is a very special announcement about a new fundraising mechanism for Rotary. And this one is a game changer, ladies and gentlemen, for our organization, quite candidly, across the board. How many of you, and I'm going to ask for the virtual hand up because I can't see any of you right now, but how many of you have ever seen a virtual fundraiser for one of your friends on Facebook? Yep. How many of you have contributed to said friend who asked for something on Facebook? Yep. Probably a good majority of us. Well, I want you to Google Raise for Rotary. It is a new fundraising opportunity that has just launched. Right now, the only way that you can do it is through North America, and it is going to expand to the rest of the world in the very immediate months to come. But you can go on there right now and you can create a fundraiser for End Polio Now. It's very easy. Believe me, it navigates you through the whole thing really, really easy. Raise for Rotary. And you know what? If you just put it out there and your friends and family happen to give you $5 or $10 or $20, imagine if we all did that. You know what? That's really going to add up. So my challenge to you is to host, to write, to share, to view, and to go and find Raise for Rotary. I hope that you will set up some kind of fundraiser. I know that I'm going to do it and challenge my friends to support our efforts. And ladies and gentlemen, I just thank you profoundly from the bottom of my heart for what it is that you do. You logged on tonight because polio is something that's important to you. It's important to me. It's important to all of us who have participated in the call tonight. And we are not going to end until we cross the finish line. And you know what? It's in sight. So let's just do it for the children of the world. Thanks. And I'm going to turn it back over to Nick.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an opportunity now for approximately 20 minutes, and there's still time in the question and answer section if you want to enter some questions for our panelists. We have maybe 3 or 4 questions entered thus far, so there is time to do that. But I'd like to start the first question with a question from Camille. And Camille says this. Camille says, and this question is open to any of the panelists, so feel free to jump in. He didn't direct it to any one particular individual. Camille says, in this expanding world of Rotary, where young people and young perspectives are becoming more and more important to the success and longevity of the organization, it becomes natural that these young Rotarians want to become more involved with the foundational causes that Rotary works to support. How can young people who are of Interact and Rotaract age contribute to this polio eradication effort on a scale that is significant and impactful? Feel free for any panelists to jump in.
Well, I'll start. Some of our most active out-of-the-box thinkers are the younger Rotarians, and Interact is very active within the school system, so they can help advocate. They can help raise money through car washes, donut sales, cake sales, pie sales, and so forth. Rotaractors are a part of Rotary. That's been established by the Council of Legislation at the 2019 council. So they are part of Rotary. So they also can be thinking out of the box and how can they have these fundraisers? We have a club in our district that one individual came up with the idea of taking a donut and making them a long donut, putting purple icing on the end of the finger. Started out with a very small project. Now his goal for this year, after 3 years, is $1 million. It's a matter of thinking of what you can do and how you want to be involved. Talk to your clubs there. Talk to the clubs in your area. Say, how can we help you? What can we do? But it's a partnership. It's not anything but truly a partnership between Interact, Rotaract, and Rotary.
Thank you, John. Any other comments on that? Our next question comes from Linda Morrow from the Rotary Club of Windsor Roseland in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And her question is, the link and support between COVID and polio support structures is fascinating. How are we communicating these links now to the media and others so that we can show that it needs to continue? And Mike, if you can answer that.
Yeah, thank you, Linda, for the question. We have seen, we've helped to get articles in some newspapers and social media and other places, specifically on this issue of the support that we are giving through COVID and the way the polio structure is being used. Jeff Kluger, for instance, of Time Magazine, has written an article about that, and there's been some in other publications. Obviously, we can do more, and I had a little bit of trouble, but I got it. Finding out the definitive information from WHO, but they have it, and I think we obviously need to do more through the Rotary communication channels to get it out, so that particularly people who are involved in Rotary and our public image coordinators and others can help to get the message out.
Thanks, Mike. Our next question comes from Sam Patabandia. And he asked, the number of wild polio cases has gone up in Pakistan and Afghanistan for the last 2 years. And he asks, is there any known reason for this? Mike.
Yeah, another good question. Yeah, Sam, it's actually a couple of different things. In Pakistan, we had a change of governments, and the prime minister, a gentleman by the name of Imran Khan there, Holger and others met with him in February, as I said. They also met with him. He said right out, his government dropped the ball when they had the transition from one government to another, took full responsibility for it. And so, there was that whole issue with the change in government. The second piece was that we had a social media incident up in Peshawar, which is up in the north, and someone pretended that all these kids got sick as taking the polio virus. It went all over WhatsApp, all over Facebook, all over. We ended up having over 100,000 children go to hospitals thinking that they were sick from having taken the polio vaccine. Totally fake. They ended up arresting the government, thank goodness, ended up actually closing the school where it all started. But it really was a huge setback. So I think those were the main things. And those things happened, that people weren't immunizing their kids. And, there was a decline and an increase in refusals. And, sadly it happened. But, when we were there in February, we had every confidence things were getting back on track. We met with the Army General. He pledged full support. In fact, he even said last week when he was participating in NID that he thinks the last polio case will be in Pakistan next year. General Bajra said that. So, but unfortunately, COVID is interfering because we had to stop house-to-house vaccinations for a bit. In Afghanistan, it's quite frankly, it's the government structure. It's the Taliban. They stopped house-to-house vaccinations more than a year and a half ago. We've had discussions with them, not Rotary, but other people that we work with in the partnership. And, it's, again, we need them to own the program as well, the anti-government elements as well as the government. So, the virus spread, but even, Mohammed Ishaq, who is the Rotarian polio committee chair there, he lives in Jalalabad. He met yesterday with the governor of Kunar province. And again, those are the things that the Rotarians in both countries are doing. They're working their tails off. And every day, John and I get emails of all the activities. So, I'm confident things are going to get back on track. But I think everyone needs to brace themselves with the interruption we've had over the last few months. We are going to see a spike in cases over the next few months. But I pray, every hope is that with the government support, with some movement by the Taliban, the cases will go down in 2021, and that the Army General will be right. 2021 will be the last year for cases.
Thanks, Mike. There's another question for you, Mike, and this comes from past District Governor Paul Street from District 9705, and he asks, how many countries have had significant circulating virus in the last year?
Paul, by the way, who's on our advocacy committee in Australia, they're mostly across Central Africa, from all the way east to west. We have circulating virus cases in Pakistan, in Afghanistan. We've had them in Malaysia and Myanmar, and sadly, even in the Philippines, and they've done a great job squashing them. Syria, a few other countries. But again, PolioEradication.org is a wonderful website. And if you go to Polio Today link at PolioEradication.org, anything you'd ever want to know to answer these questions, statistics is there. The financing, how the money's spent, what countries, every last detail. So I encourage Paul and everyone to look at that website, and particularly the link that says Polio Today. PolioEradication.org.
Thank you, Mike. This is probably a question maybe for Liz or Host or Neil, because we've had several people have been very impressed with both the slides that Mike and John put up, and they're asking if they can somehow obtain copies of these, and if they can obtain a recording of this, as they found these slides particularly useful. Liz, do you have any comments for our listeners here?
I do. With the kind permission of our presenters, we will place the slide decks available on the same webpage that you clicked to get to when you registered. And I will post that on the going away slide at the end. And it's the web link that appeared on our flyer, which was polio.rotary6400.org/2020. You don't have to remember that. It was on the flyer, and we'll have it up at the end for you to take a quick photo.
Thank you, Liz. Always a compliment when people want your slide presentations, and hopefully people can use those for their club, district, and zone presentations. We have a question from Shahab Alawar, and he asks, how is this pandemic changing the way we reach out and vaccinate?
John, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to do it?
Oh, go ahead.
Just trying to share it. Anyway, it's totally changing. We have a moral imperative to help protect our polio workers as well as the people from whom we go door to door. You know, our costs have gone up. You know, first, we've done a lot of training. We spent the other things on COVID. But even as we have begun to resume the program, and we have, you know, it's costing us about 10% more because we're providing the training to all the workers. We're providing the mask, you know, the N95 mask. We're providing the shields. We're providing other, you know, equipment. You know, a number one imperative is to make sure. The other thing it's really affecting is, you know, we need to be really watching all of this vaccine hesitancy stuff that's out there, and make sure that we're upgrading our messaging, that, you know, everyone knows that it's safe, that it is safe. But, you know, mainly we need to protect those workers, because the worst thing that can happen is, you know, you resume as we have, and then you begin to have cases that people think have come from the polio activity. So our priority is safety, but it's also, you know, we need to safely resume the program, and we are doing it.
Thank you, Mike. I think we have time for a couple more questions, and we have two excellent questions. The first is, the question is, we hear about acute flaccid, Mike, I think this is going to be directed to you, and it says, we hear about acute flaccid myelitis. People have asked, is this polio or something different? And I think that's a good question.
I'm not sure the question. You know, what we have is what we call AFP, acute flaccid paralysis. And that's when a kid has, you know, a problem with their leg or whatever, and, you know, they go to, you know, their local health place in the surveillance. You know, 99% of those cases, people think of polio, and they end up not being polio. But what we do is we take stool samples from them, and they go to the laboratories. And when they go to the laboratories, they're proven not to have polio. It's not that they don't have issues. They might have MS. They might have other things. But our polio network is the intake system for that. Aruna might have a little more on that too.
Nick, and I agree with Mike, because even though they look like polio symptoms, they're not. They are symptoms that are due to a virus. And I know that for sure because my grandson was affected by it a couple of years ago. And we had contacted Dr. Fauci at that time because we were in fact, Jennifer was very involved with that phone call. And it is a different types of viruses that are affecting children that have similar symptoms like the polio, like the polio symptoms, but they are not. So it's not polio. It's not related to polio.
Thanks for that, Aruna. I'm going to maybe one or two more questions, but this is a very interesting question from Thomas Cardwell. And Thomas says, and Aruna, this may be for you or any of the other panelists, but he says, I was struck by Aruna, who was hugged by the grateful grandfather for having his grandkids vaccinated. I got a tear in my eye. How can we, i.e. Rotary, build more bridges and break down gender barriers as we continue the fight against polio? That changing of patriarchal thinking seems almost as important as eradicating polio.
Cultural differences will exist because those societies live in those cultures. But my experience with my team, my husband and myself and the teams, has been that when you approach groups in those countries with the intention of doing good, and they know you're doing good to their children, the cultural, humanity comes forward, and not they don't remember the cultural differences. I think the more teams we take to these countries and the more interactions we have will build that bond and make it easier for us. That's the only panache I can offer, in the sense that we need to continue working shoulder to shoulder with the polio workers in front.
Thank you, Aruna. We have a question from Raj. And Raj says, when a COVID-19 vaccine is ready, how will Rotary be at the table in the discussion for distribution?
I suspect that with the Gates involvement and Gavi's involvement, that Rotary will be asked to participate. There is a big difference in the fact that with the polio, it is oral vaccine. When you look at the COVID, they're not working on an oral vaccine. They're working on an inoculation vaccine. So that's going to cause a difference in how we would handle the distribution, because we can't get as many volunteers probably to go out there. But remember one thing, Rotary's primary project is the eradication of polio, and the Council of Legislation, the Board of the Trustees says we're not taking on any other major project until that one is finished.
Thanks, John. I think that's such a crucial point. And I think it's also important to measure that why we call it PolioPlus is that, you know, we also vaccinate with the infrastructure that's put in place, measles, mumps, rubella vaccines, and other vaccines during that. And so it's just not the polio eradication, it is PolioPlus for a reason. And I'm sure that, you know, those vaccines hopefully will be included in our workers as well. That's probably one of the benefits of the infrastructure that Rotary has been, you know, the main driver in setting up that infrastructure. We had a question from Hamidou. He asked, polio has been eradicated from Africa, but is Rotary going to continue to vaccinate newborn babies?
Yes. We will continue to vaccinate about 450 million children a year until polio is eradicated.
Worldwide. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, unless we have any other questions, I haven't seen any come in. There was one mention from Harry Moore, and maybe you can comment on this. This will be our last comment. He says the GPEI website does not mention Rotary. And I'm not sure if anyone can comment on that. Mike.
There's lots of mentions on the polioeradication.org of Rotary, including, you can see how much money we've given over the years. You can see our involvement, our logos there. So, you know, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know,
can I say one other thing?
Of course.
It has nothing to do with, you know, I noted tonight that Jennifer's on the call. You know, the first woman president of Rotary. And we also have Sylvia Whitlock on the call tonight. And Sylvia was the first woman club president, the first woman Rotarian. And it is such an honor to be on this call with you know, all of the people still on it, but particularly with those two individuals. So I just wanted to say that.
Nick mentioned that Sylvia was on the call. He noticed when he was scrolling through the room earlier. And I know that, like I said earlier, we've got people on the call from all over the place. But,
Yeah.
you know, we often say that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and certainly she is a woman whose shoulders I clearly stand on, but I also stand beside her because she's one of my dearest friends in the whole world, and is someone who has, there she is, and she is someone who has not only paved the way, but I consider her to be one of my sisters, and I mean that. She's family, and so I love seeing you on the screen there now, Sylvia. So anyway, just thank you for being on here. And I know
All honor. I just posted a fundraiser on Facebook.
Yay! You know what, Sylvia? I'm gonna. You've never been shy about saying your age. Can I have you share that?
85.
Exactly.
Going on 86.
So we say that Rotaractors are the ones who are going to start like these online fundraisers. You know, Sylvia Whitlock is in the house. Like, and she is the one who's doing exactly what needs to be done. And so, message to every one of us out there that it doesn't matter who you are, what phase or stage of life that you're in. All you need to do is have passion. And thanks for being such a role model and such a leader.
And you have it. You have it.
And
Well,
John.
love you.
Hey, before we sign off, let me pay a special thanks to Ed and to Neil and to Liz for putting this thing together, because as I counted hurriedly through there, we got 8 different countries involved and everything. So I think it's fantastic, and this would be a great idea that can spread out too.
Yeah.
So Ed, Neil, Liz, thank you very much.
Thank
all.
you.
I just want to say a big thank you to all of you for participating. It's been very meaningful, and I hope we raise a lot of money from it. Thank you.
I hope so. And ladies and gentlemen, as Ed said, just a quick reminder that if you want to donate, rotary.org/give. And Liz is pointing to it up in the upper left hand of her screen. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank our 4 panelists, Aruna, Mike, John, and Jennifer. We're very privileged to have them on our call tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you who spent your precious time tonight to join us on this call. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Neil McBeth.
Thank you, Nicholas. I want to tell everyone that we want to thank you for joining this webinar. We hope the evening's program has been both informative and inspiring. We encourage our participants to do 2 things. One, you've already been suggested that you go to rotary.org/give and make a donation. But more importantly, we want you to return to your clubs and your districts and encourage them to do the same thing, to think about giving some of their DDF. 20% would be a great figure to start with towards polio. But more importantly, go back to your clubs and initiate a World Polio event and register it, so that we know that you are doing something both in your clubs and in your districts that will support Rotary's #1 initiative. I know Nick has already thanked the panelists, but I want to give my thanks as well. And more importantly, I want to thank Ed for initiating this. He made the call, he started the ball rolling, and I think we've had a very successful evening. So I want to thank everyone again, and this will conclude our program for tonight.
Thank
Love
you.
y'all.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.